Honorable Chairperson, respected teachers, panelists, and my dear fellow colleagues and all the members of Bangladesh Cardiac Society, a very good afternoon to you all, and I am welcome you all to my presentation, Assessment and Management of Diastolic Dysfunction. Me, Dr. Vijay Datto, Assistant Professor Cardiology and ICBD, and Organizing Secretary, Dhaka Division, welcome you all to enjoy this session. At first, I must want to pay my respect to the late Professor Dr. Mustafa Kamal, who was Organizing Secretary of Chittagong Division of Bangladesh Cardiac Society. A 50 years old lady presented with dyspnea who has a history of hypertension for the last 10 years with poor drug compliance. She has no history of chest pain or bronchial asthma. Her chest X-ray shows mild cardiomegaly, and ECG shows features of LVH, and her echo shows concentric LVH with ejection fraction near about 70%. And look at his mitral, her mitral info velocities. Here is the E by A ratio is 0.7, and deceleration time is T20 millisecond, and TDI of lateral annulus shows the E prime is 9 centimeter per second. That is, she is going to belong to the group of grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. And another 21 years lady already presented with dyspnea after his 3 weeks of her childbirth. She presented to us with the history of dyspnea, cough, and hemoptysis for the last 2 weeks. There is no history of asthma. She is her pulse is mildly tachycardic, and blood pressure is normal, and edema was mildly present. And her chest X-ray shows cardiomegaly, and ECG shows sinus tachycardia, and echo shows global LV dysfunction, and LV is dilated, and ejection fraction was near about 30%. Her mitral inflow velocity shows E by A ratio is more than 21. E by 1 is more than 2, and E by E prime ratio is more than 21. That she belongs to this group of grade 3 diastolic dysfunction. And after the Valsalva maneuver, this MB-EA ratio persisted, and that is 2.9, and E by E prime ratio is 20. So that is, she is going to in the phase of irreversible changes, that is in group grade 4 diastolic dysfunction. The ventricular dysfunction may be isolated systolic, isolated diastolic, or combination of the two. When there is abnormal increasing end diastolic pressure for a given end diastolic volume, we can think that there is diastolic dysfunction. And normal ventricle fills without an abnormal increase in LV end diastolic pressure. This may be the result of abnormal relaxation, that is active process, or abnormal ventricular stiffness, that is a passive process, or combination of the two. How can we diagnose left ventricular diastolic dysfunction? First, we have to focus on the clinical features of the patients. The patients may present with and may mimic features of systolic dysfunction, and there may be some comorbid conditions like hypertension, diabetes mellitus, ischemic heart disease, and most of the patients presented to us in the older age groups. There may be presence of some valvular heart disease or congenital heart disease, pericardial or pulmonary disease also. And most of the time, their ECG shows us features of left atrial enlargement, left ventricular hypertrophy, or features of ischemic heart disease. Sometimes the chest X-ray may show absolutely normal size chest X-ray in isolated diastolic dysfunction. And we have to confirm this by the different modalities of echocardiography, cardiac MR, radionuclide ventriculography, and finally cardiac catheterization. When we can find the features of increased LVEGP. Now I am showing you the slides regarding the echo features. How can we diagnose the diastolic dysfunction? We all know that the 2/3 of the cardiac cycle are covered by the normal diastole, and it is an active process. and requires energy. Abnormalities of diastolic function precedes the dose of diastolic function. This is very important. When we do the echocardiography, this must be gated with the ECG, and we should have a key knowledge regarding ECG. We all know that the phase of diastolic failure starts from the midpoint of the T wave and beginning of the QRS complex. There are 4 phases of normal diastole. The first one is isovolumic relaxation phase, then early rapid filling phase, number 3 diastasis, and finally late atrial filling, that is caused by the atrial contraction. Late filling of the LV, that is due to the atrial contraction. And according to this, then first one is IVRT, then initial early rapid filling phase is causes the E wave, and then features of diastasis, and finally the A wave, that is caused by the atrial contraction. Now, echo in diastolic dysfunction, reliability and reproducibility. Now, what things we should give emphasis on doing an echocardiography? In 2D echocardiography, we can measure the LA volume. In spectral Doppler echo, we can measure the mitral inflow pattern, TR peak velocity, isovolumetric relaxation time, IVRT, that is pulmonary venous flow pattern. In tissue Doppler imaging, we can measure E prime, A prime in lateral and medial septal annulus. Sometimes we can measure the mitral inflow color propagation velocity, that is called VP, and other models are spectral tracking, strain rate imaging for regional diastolic dysfunction. But the most important echo modalities are the mitral inflow pattern and tissue Doppler imaging. These two is very, very important. Now, first, the mitral inflow velocities. In mitral inflow velocities, it should be measured in the apical 4th chamber view. The pulse wave Doppler, we use the pulse wave Doppler. The cursor should be in between the 2 leaflets of the mitral valve, and within the 1 to 3 millimeter of the mitral valve, sample volume should be 1 to 3 millimeter, and low filtering and low gain should be used. And when we are measuring the mitral inflow signals, we should be keen knowledge and should measure these things. The first one is E velocity, then A velocity, then EA ratio, then deceleration type of the EF slope, and finally the A wave duration. These 5 things we have to keep in mind. Look in the left side, that E wave with higher velocity, there is E by E is greater than the A wave. This is normal. And in the right side, the opposition, A wave is greater than the A wave, that is like twice than the E wave, and that is it impairs the impaired LV relaxation. And another important thing is, in all time, an altered EA ratio does not necessarily mean LV diastolic dysfunction. So when there is alteration of the E wave, EA ratio, we have to measure other things to give a final decision of this patient has diastolic dysfunction of that. This is MB deceleration time. The normal time is 160 to 220 milliseconds. When it is more than 220 milliseconds, then we can think of diastolic dysfunction grade 1. But as the disease progresses, the deceleration time shortens. That is, shorter the duration time, the higher the filling pressure. Now we can grade the diastolic dysfunction like that. That is super normal when we can measure of a diastolic function of a patient with less than 40 years of age, with no comorbid condition, a healthy heart. Then his EA ratio is greater than usually more than 2. Then it is super normal. And in normal, EA ratio should be more than 0.2 to less than 2. And when there is grade 1 diastolic dysfunction, EA ratio is less than 0.8. And when another one, that is pseudonormal, that is EA ratio 0.8 to 0.2, that is pseudonormal. And grade 3, I already mentioned, When the E ratio is more than 2, it is grade 3. When it is reversible, it is grade 3, and where it is irreversible by Valsalva maneuvers, then it is grade 4. Another important thing is IVRT, isovolumetric relaxation time. We can measure it by in apical 5-chamber view. The cursor of continuous wave Doppler is placed between the LVOT and the mitral valve. Like that. And normal is 70 to 90 milliseconds. Impaired in relaxation phase, IVRT increases, that is grade 1, and in restrictive phases, that is grade 2 and grade 3, it is less than 50 milliseconds. Another important thing is pulmonary venous flow. This is measured in apical 4-chamber view, and pulse wave Doppler is used, and it is done by color Doppler gating. Upper right pulmonary vein is used, and the sample volume is placed within 1 centimeter of the orifice of the upper right pulmonary vein. There are two flow we can see in there. Another S means systolic flow, and systolic wave, and D means diastolic. Always S is greater than the D. And another one is AR duration, atrial reversal time. So this is the components are systolic flow, S, diastolic flow, atrial reversal, and AR duration. Normally AR duration is 125 plus minus 30 milliseconds. And the important thing is the decrease in systolic component means the increasing diastolic components, and it causes diastolic dysfunction, and in diastolic dysfunction, AR duration and AR peak velocity also increases. Here, comparison of mitral valve and pulmonary valve A duration. Normally, pulmonary valve AR duration is less than mitral valve A duration. That means AR is less than A wave. As LVDP increases, pulmonary vein AR duration is more than the mitral valve A duration. Another important thing is LAVI, that is left atrial volume index. It reflects cumulative effects of increased LV pressure, filling pressure over time. It is an independent predictor of death, heart failure, atrial fibrillation, and ischemic stroke. And when LAVI is more than 34 ml per meter square, it indicates LV diastolic dysfunction. And we can measure the left atrial volume index by these two, in apical 4-chamber view and apical 2-chamber view by Simpson method. Now, another important thing is tissue Doppler imaging of the mitral valve annulus. It is taken in apical 4-chamber view, pulse wave Doppler cursor placed in the lateral annulus or lateral mitral annulus or septal mitral annulus, and average E velocity is computed. Look, on the left side, that is septal mitral annulus, and on the right side, that is lateral mitral annulus. There are 5 components of the mitral annular tissue Doppler imaging velocities. Number 1, isovolumic contraction. Number 2, systolic wave, that is S, isovolumic relaxation, shown here, and early diastolic wave, that is E prime, and late diastolic wave, that is A prime. Now, E and A represent mitral annular velocity towards the base of the heart during early passive. It is like that the mitral valvular inflow velocities. There is E and A, and here that is reverse, just E prime and A prime. When it is the septal E prime is less than 7 centimeter per second, it is significant. Then we can think that there may be diastolic dysfunction. Or when the lateral E prime is less than 10 centimeters per second, then we can think that there may be diastolic dysfunction. In left side, this is the normal TDI of a mitral valve annulus, that E is greater than the A. And in the right side, the reverse pattern, that is A is greater than the E and may indicate impaired relaxation or pseudonormal pattern. So this is very important, I think. The importance of E by E prime ratio is, if the E by E prime ratio is less than 8, that means LVDP is normal. But if the E by E prime ratio is more than 15, then LVDP is elevated. And if the E by E prime is within 8, to 15, then it is gray zone. And LBDP is intermediate, and we have to measure the other parameters also. So this is on the left panel, the lateral annulus, on the right panel, the septal annulus, and finally an average P by E by E ratio is measured. This is automatically planned in automatically shoot in the grafted in the machines, in the echo machine. The importance of E prime and E by E prime. E by E prime can guesstimate pulmonary capillary waste pressure. That means if the E by E prime ratio is more than 15, that means the pulmonary capillary waste pressure is at least 20 or more. And if it is less than 8, then the pulmonary capillary waste pressure is normal. E by E prime has been validated in clinical studies as a marker of elevated pulmonary capillary waste pressure. Elevated E by E prime is a predictor of poor outcome in patients of myocardial infarction. And significantly decreased E prime is associated with higher mortality. But there are some fallacies when we can have false statement in TDI. When there is moderate to severe annular calcification, TDI cannot be used as a marker of diastolic dysfunction. If there is mitral valve prosthesis, if the patient has recent myocardial infarction or moderate to severe MR, we usually do not do the TDI, and it gives a false statement. Another important thing we all know about that is peak tricuspid regurgitation velocities. We all know about that is taken in the apical 4-chamber view. The continuous wave Doppler is used, parallel beam alignment, and it measures during inspiration. If there is any problem in measuring, then raise the patient's leg. Use atypical views, one intercostal space higher, or 2-chamber view of RB or subcostal. Use right heart contrast. If we can, you cannot measure the tricuspid regurgitation easily, then these maneuvers can be done. Another less practiced thing, that is velocity of flow propagation, that is BP. It is only used when there are atrial fibrillation, or there is radius changing, and there is changing of preloads, and this only done in these situations. Now, algorithm for practical assessment of LV diastolic dysfunction: if the patients with dyspnea NYHA class 2 or more, if the ejection fraction is more than 50%, we measure the E by E prime. If the E by E prime is more than 15, then straight away the patient LVDP is high. But if the E by E prime is less than 15, and we are suspecting that this patient may have diastolic dysfunction, we can do a diastolic stress test. And if the E by E prime is more than 15 or PSP more than 40 millimeter of mercury, then the patients, we can think that the LV pressure is at, that means LVDP is high. And if the E by E prime ratio less than 15 or PSP is less than 40, then LVDP is normal. Now, this is the latest guideline, the 2016 recommendation for the evaluation of left ventricular diastolic function by echocardiography, an update from the American Society of Echocardiography and European Association of Cardiovascular Imaging, that was published in 2016. And there are some changes in this guideline. They discourages to use BP routinely, pulmonary venous flow, MB deceleration time, and IVRT time. But side by side, they are given more emphasis on E by E prime and peak TRZ velocities. Now, regarding diagnosis of LV dysfunction, it is present or not, which we can rely on only these 4 variables. Number 1, MB E prime velocity, average E by E prime ratio, LV volume index, that is LAVI, and number 4, peak TR velocity. These 4 variables to diagnose LV dysfunction present or not. If in MB E velocity, if the septal E prime is less than 7, I already mentioned earlier, or the lateral E prime is less than 10, then we can think that there may be presence of diastolic dysfunction. If the average E by E prime ratio is more than 14, LAVI is more than 34 ml per meter square, and peak TR velocity more than 2.8 meter per second. These 4 parameters is very crucial for diagnosis of LV diastolic dysfunction. And if 3 or 4 parameters do not meet the cutoff values, then this patient is absolutely normal. But if the 3 or 4 parameters meet the cutoff values, then his diastolic function is abnormal. And inconclusive, if 2 parameters do not meet the cutoff values, then it is inconclusive. And now, after diagnosis of presence of diastolic dysfunction, we have to grading this diastolic dysfunction, and it again depends on another 5 variables. That means that is MV E by A ratio, peak E velocities, average E by E prime ratio, LAVI, and peak TR velocity. Sometimes when one or more of the index cannot be measured properly, then we can use the pulmonary vein SD ratio. It is occasionally. Now, regarding grading, how can we grade? If the E by A ratio is less than 0.8 or E velocities, E peak velocity is less than 50 centimeter per second, that is grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. I'm repeating that this is grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. But if the EU ratio is more than or equal to 2, then it is straightforward, it is grade 3 or 4 diastolic dysfunction. But what about the patients in between? That is 0.2 to 0.8, 0.2 to 0.8 to less than 8. One group, and another group is E ratio less than 0.8 and but E peak velocity is more than 50 centimeter per second. For giving a conclusion of the diagnosis of this intermediate group, we have to measure the 3 parameters. Number 1, TRZ velocities, average E by E prime, and LAVI. 3 measurements should be taken. If 2 or 3 positive, then it is a straight to a grade 2 diastolic dysfunction. If only 1 positive, then it is grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. If 1 positive or 1 negative and only 1 variable is available, then it is inconclusive. Pulmonary vein SD ratio used. If one of 3 main parameters is not available, then pulmonary venous systolic by diastolic ratio, if less than 1, it indicates increased left atrial pressure. Now, this is the algorithm for normal ejection fraction patient. How can we suspect there is diastolic dysfunction? We can see, I already mentioned these 4 parameters. Average E by E prime should be more than 14. Septal E velocity is less than 7, or lateral E velocities E prime less than 10, or TR velocity is more than 2.8 meter per second, or LAVI more than 34 ml per meter square. If at least 50%, that means 2 or more, 3 or 4 is present, then it is diastolic dysfunction. If less than 50% positive, that only 1 positive, then it is normal diastolic dysfunction, and in between that is intermediate. What about the patients with reduced ejection fraction? Here, if we measure the E ratio, if the E ratio is less than 0.8 and the peak E velocity is less than 50 centimeter per second, that means that is grade 1 diastolic dysfunction, and then their left atrial pressure is normal. If symptomatic, that consider coronary disease or proceed to diastolic stress test. If the EO ratio is more than or equal to 2, then I already mentioned that it is grade 3 diastolic dysfunction. And if the patient is in between that E ratio less than 0.8 and E prime more than 50 per second, or E ratio more than 0.8 to less than 2, then 3 criteria should be evaluated. Average E by E prime more than 14, TR velocity is more than 2.8 meter per second, LA volume index more than 34 ml per meter square. If 2 are positive, among the 2 or 3 are positive, then it is straight to grade 2 diastolic dysfunction. If only 1 is positive, then it is grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. And all are negative, it is normal diastolic dysfunction or grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. Now, this is the very important chart. If the patient has LV relaxation abnormalities, in normal patient it is normal, in grade 1 is impaired, and grade 2 and grade 3 the LV relaxation is impaired. Left atrial pressure is normal in normal patient and grade 1 patient, but grade 2 and grade 3 patient have elevated left atrial pressure. Mitral E by A ratio is less than 0.8 in grade 1 already mentioned, in grade 3 more than 2, and in between is grade 2. And E by E prime ratio is normal and grade 1 less than 10, grade 2 10 by 14, and grade 3 more than 14. Peak TR velocity is normal in less than 2.8 is normal and grade 1 diastolic dysfunction, but increased in grade 2 and grade 3 diastolic dysfunction. Left atrium volume index is normal and grade 1 diastolic dysfunction and increased in grade 2 and grade 3 diastolic dysfunction. So regarding management, no definitive treatment yet to reduce mortality and morbidity in patients with heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Most of the patients are elderly and highly symptomatic and often have poor quality of life. So aim of the therapy may be to alleviate symptoms and to improve well-being. Hospitalizations and deaths are more likely to be non-cardiovascular in this group of patients, in contrary to the heart failure reduced ejection fraction. So screening for cardiovascular and non-cardiovascular comorbidities that are present should be managed accordingly to improve symptoms and outcome related, so to that comorbidity and not to exacerbate heart failure. This is the guideline of American Heart Association regarding treatment of heart failure preserved ejection fraction that was published in 2013. It states that systolic and diastolic blood pressure should be controlled according to published clinical practice guideline, class 1 level of evidence B, and diuretics should be used for relief of symptoms due to volume overload, and management of atrial fibrillation according to published clinical practice guidelines to improve symptomatic heart failure. So there are different clinical trials regarding use of beta blockers, AC inhibitor, ARB, neprilysin inhibitor, SGLT2 inhibitor, defibrillators, CRT, but they do not definitely decrease mortality and morbidity of the patient of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. However, there are some weak signals. There are some small-scale data that shows the benefits of mineralocortical receptors antagonist and sacubitril valsartan and in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, particularly in a small particular group of patients, a small subsets of patients. And this Paragon heart failure trial shows that the total hospitalization, heart failure, and death from cardiovascular causes was not significantly lower with sacubitril valsartan combination than that of valsartan groups. There's another trial, there is an ELA trial. It shows chlorothalidone reduced the incidence of new onset heart failure with preserved ejection fraction compared to amlodipine, lisinopril, and doxazosin. In the patients of atrial fibrillation, rhythm control is preferred over rate control, and use of anticoagulation should be used in the patients with atrial fibrillation. Sodium restriction, moderation of alcohol consumption, and weight reduction are encouraged. Metformin is preferred over a SGLT2 inhibitor in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction with diabetes mellitus and shows mortality benefit. And finally, my dear colleagues, chairmen, respected teachers, so remember that know your machine. First, get help of the application specialist, have ECG gating, take height, weight, and determine body surface area of the patient, practice regularly, and ensure guidelines. Thank you all for patient hearing.